Hey guys, what's going on? Shaw here, and in this video we're going to actually walk through the new Druid class rework and kind of just my general opinions of it, how I feel about the new talent tree redesign, and just kind of go over like the general things that are going to be changing about the Guardian Druid going into patch 10.5, which over the last couple days we've kind of gotten leaks and hints that it might be in January, early February, so we'll have to see. But the biggest complaint that Guardian Druid players and Druid players alike have really been kind of voicing to Blizzard is that our talent trees have pretty much been in a very alpha-like archaic state. It was one of the first trees that were designed. Some of the specs did see reworks like Resto, Boomkin, and Feral throughout the beta process, but still had a lot of pretty major flaws in them. So what I want to do in this video is talk through some of the new changes that are going to be coming to the Guardian Druid, and just give my general kind of thoughts. This is an unscripted video, so I'm going to just kind of go through it. This can be found on WoWhead, this calculator. I'll leave this PTR link in the description below, as well as the general notes. But let's go take a look at this. I might, in post-production, I might go in and show you guys what the old tree looks like. But the biggest thing that this tree did was well, first off, it opened up more pathing. So for example, like pathing here to, remove corruption, some pathing off of Typhoon later in the tree. There's not as many kind of these like endpoint nodes where you build off and then get it just ends. For example, like Star Surge and Hibernate maybe are the only two examples, but most of the other things in the tree have pathing through them, which makes it a little bit easier to manage your build and make small adjustments without being locked in. That's mostly what's happening to the class tree. It is going to hurt. I think the rest of Druids that I've talked to said that this tree is actually worse for them. But in the case of the Guardian Druid, and I'm sure maybe some of the other specs, this might be good. But again, if you're a Feral player or a Boomkin and it's not, let me know down below. I haven't looked into it that much for those classes. But for Guardian Druid, it actually is pretty much a net gain. So in this tree specifically, let's just say we normally would start by taking improved Swipe, as well as improved Bark Skin and Verdant Heart, as well as Iron Fur, and then we would have to spend normally 3 points in Killer Instinct, but now we only have to spend 2. So essentially what this tree did is it gave us 1 free point. The rest of the pathing is pretty much going to stay exactly the same. I personally, on live servers, have been playing into the kind of the balance affinity. You're still going to have to kind of path down a few things that you're not going to use as much, but instead of being forced to take Star Surge, it's now off of the beaten path, and you're picking up Sunfire now early. You don't really normally cast Sunfire. I wish it was able to be casted in Bear form, because that would make actually Bear pretty competitive in Mythic Plus. But let's just take Starfire, and now we still have to spend 1 more point. So we're going to then be able to pick a Sunfire before the second tier opens. Now from this point, you're probably going to want to pick up like things like Skull Bash and Thick Hide. Though, now in this world, you can actually skip around Thick Hide if you wanted to just go for like Matted Fur, and then build out a bunch of stuff in the Resto and Balance tree. But as a tank player, you're probably going to want a thick Hide. This week, specifically with that Raging, you're going to want Soothe, and of course, Stampeding Roar. And now, because again, we're from the first tier of the tree, we still have that extra point to spend, we're going to be able to actually work a little bit deeper, and we're going to be able to go from Typhoon and then branch this into an improved Typhoon with like Incessant Tempest or Gale Winds. We're going to go Incessant. And now we still have 1 more point to spend before we can unlock the 3rd tier, which is a good thing. So we can grab Nurturing Instinct if we want Rejuve, if we want more mobility, if we for some reason want to like Boomkin Weave with improved Sunfire to have it cleave everything nearby, you can do that. I wish maybe Primal Fury worked a little bit differently. Right now it's pretty much just a cat ability. It has to be critically striking with combo point generators that makes this good. So we're pretty much going to ignore the left side. But in this case, we'll probably just grab Nurturing Instinct. They also cut this down from 3 to 2, so they split this, they cut it down and then upped the amount that it gives you per stack, so now we're getting 3 instead of 2%. So that's good. You're getting more value for this. And then the bottom of the tree is pretty much going to look exactly the same. You'll probably go for a CC here, probably for Incap, just because Well-Honed Instincts is really strong. And then in my build specifically that I've been playing with, we have like triple Lakara's Teaching plus Renewal, and improved Stampeding Roar, and then we can grab like things like Ursol's Innervate to get to Nature's Vigil. And again, you'll notice that we have 1 more free point to spend. Now, of course, you can always drop like things like Improved Roar, or you can drop Renewal. But basically, you can now get to the point where you can kind of play 2 capstones, which is just really beneficial for the Guardian Druid kit and a little bit more adaptation. Protector of the Pack also opens up some stuff on the right side of the tree, and it has synergy with Forest Walker. So there's a lot of cool things now that they added. So yeah, that's pretty much how I feel about this tree. This is a small improvement for Bear. It's nothing major, but the pathing does feel a little bit better through here. I still have some issues with remove corruption. I wish it was also connected to Sunfire. I do think that balanced druids and or druids who want to play into balance affinity should be able to remove corruption without having to still sacrifice 3 points. That's like my one kind of big thing still. Also, maybe Hibernate should be able to connect to Typhoon here, maybe Cyclone down, similar to how they reconnected a bunch of stuff in the actual class tree, or the spec tree, I should say. So there's still a few things that feel odd, but for the most part, this is definitely a step in the right direction. So 10.5 bears for the class tree, looking good. Let's jump over to the class tree. So similar to before, what they did is they made Ursine Adept, which I'll pull up a kind of image of the last tree that we have currently on live. We had to take Ursine Adept, which basically took a point away from us, literally just to have a passive thing that was always in our kits, similar to a lot of the other tanks have, things like your Vanguard, your Aegis of Lights, and just like the general tank DRs. So this time they added it back into our passive kit, so now bears don't have to worry about it, and that means that we get 1 extra point to spend here. So normally you would go into Maul, you would take your Maul, you would take your Gore, and you would take your Survival Instincts, and now you have a little bit more options. They moved front of the pack to the top of the tree, which is super nice, because if you want this now, you can grab it much easier, and you can maybe drop Brambles for it, while also still being able to get to Innate Resolve, but you also don't have to play it. So in this case, we were playing Brambles and Innate Resolve. We're grabbing our Berserk, of course. And then now if you were like playing into After the Wildfire, you don't have to play in the improved Mangle now. You can just play around it if you'd like, or you can play through it. So it depends on what builds you're going to be playing. But for this case, let's just take Improved Survival, and then we'll spend our 8th point here. And that should unlock the 2nd tier. Now, later in the tree, we're going to actually have points to come back and spend and grab some of this other stuff if we'd like, which is just good all around. They did shift Flashing Claws down to the bottom tier of the tree, and what they really did, this is where the meat of the rework is coming in. So if you, actually really quick, if you look at the center of the tree, most of it's staying the same. They did swap Flashing Claws with Reinvigoration, but everything else is the same except for the images. So Reinforced Fur now looks a little different, Vicious Cycle is going to look a little different, and so is Fury of Nature. Fury? Yeah, almost said furry, which would be fitting for the Druid, right? So we now have pretty much the same exact identical tree, but with 1 more free point to spend. So now we have 12 points to spend here. So if you still want Earth Warden for like Mystic Plus, for example, you would play Reinvigoration and then Earth Warden. But what's really cool is you no longer have to actually play through Berserk nodes to get to the bottom of the tree. You can ignore Berserks for the most part completely. You will have to take it if you want Flashing Claws and Dream of Cenarius, but if you don't, you can easily play into like Pulverize down to Ursoc's Fury, or you can play like Tooth and Claw into Circle of Life and Death. So there's some cool options here. There's a little bit of bleed out as well onto either side. So for example, Circle of Life and Death, while it is a little bit more on the left hand side, it does play very well into the Arcane-esque playstyle over here, and same with like Thorns of Iron. My one gripe is that Thorns of Iron is a little deep, kind of locked behind a lot of these arcane based talents, despite it being kind of a rage spending thing, which really has synergy with things like Blood Frenzy and Circle, but that's kind of my only gripe with this newly reworked tree. So let's spend some points here. Let's get like our layered main Reinforced Fur, for example, and then maybe play Survival. And then we're going to maybe choose After the Wildfire. We still have 3 more points to spend. So let's grab just our Berserk Persistence as well as Double Fury of Nature. Now in this case, we're kind of leaning more into this area of the tree down on the right hand side. A couple of notable things that I still want to grab is like things like Circle. We also want like Elun's Favored as well as our Incarn and our CDR for Mythic Plus. And then we still can grab things like Blood Frenzy. And then they added this ability back to the game called Raise. This strikes an ability or you strike the enemy with the Might of Ursak, dealing 70% of your attack power physical damage to all enemies in a frontal cone. So think of it like Revenge or Shockwave from a warrior's perspective. This is a very nice dump for AoE damage. So it does do reduced damage beyond 5 targets. PTR realms, when I checked earlier today, weren't up yet, so I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to actually test this, but as soon as I do, I'll get back to you guys to see if it's worth running. Because we're playing Incarn, Thorns of Iron is obviously going to be a pretty insane pickup for like pure damage. We still then get access to Rage of the Sleeper, and we still have 3 more points to spend. So we can still play like our Scintillating Moonlights with Galactic Guardian. We can drop, actually it's kind of hard to drop some things down here, honestly. So there's a few problems with the bottom of the tree, and it's like, it's making this a little bit more claustrophobic. It's a little bit more cluttered. Some of the pathing's okay through here. I don't mind some of these like more lateral transitions that we're able to get from like over here all the way to like, if you wanted to just play down the right side of the tree, you could still get to Blood Frenzy, which is great, and vice versa. But now that we're going to be missing a lot of cool talents. Like you might, if you want to still play Galactic Guardian with Twin Moonfire, you might have to drop like Blood Frenzy or Rage of the Sleeper. It's not now all loaded into one corner, so you can see this as a positive or a negative. With higher levels of secondary stat, it might become possible to, like, you know, drop things like Blood Frenzy or drop things like, you know, Moonfire and stuff, but the movement through this bottom area of the tree is kind of rough. I still think the left side's a little bit stronger in this case. The movement through here is a little stronger. There's a little bit more synergy with some of these talents down here, from Flashing Claws to Blood Frenzy to Ursoc's Fury, and even this new Raise. Now, the problem I have is that they added Lunar Beam back into the game, but as of right now, the tooltip is saying that it's still that 1.25 minute cooldown, which is really awkward, and the attack power modifier is way too small. If Blizzard wants this to be competitive, especially as a capstone talent, they need to buff this significantly, and they need to change the way it works, because it's a small little AoE circle around your character, can easily be moved out of, like with any mechanic that happens, and for it being such a long cooldown really sucks. So they need to either shorten the cooldown or increase the radius or increase the amount of attack power and multiplier. Ideally all three of those. We'll see though. This is data mined tooltip text from the old ability, so it might be getting reworked, but if it stays like this, I can't imagine Lunar Beam will actually be good. It's what I've asked for, it's what a lot of other Guardian Druids have asked for, but it needs to be stronger than this. So it's, yeah, we'll get there, hopefully. So overall, fairly happy with these trees. I'm not sure what it's going to mean for the meta. I don't know if Guardian Druid will be great. I'm going to have to wait and see what it's going to look like on PTR, but I will update you guys as soon as I can. I hope you guys have all been enjoying Dragonflight so far. I know I have. This season kind of hit off with a bang. I personally have run over like 60 keys already, and I've been watching the World First race, you know, raiding and having a blast doing all that. So I apologize for kind of the lack of content lately, though I do plan on uploading content regularly going forward, mostly through the holidays and afterwards. So if you're looking for more tank-based content, Mythic Plus based content, or anything in that general realm of existence, feel free to hit that sub button. Anyways, huge shout out to all my lovely Patreons who provide me with their actual real life money to let me do things like this. Without them, there'd be much less of me. So hope you guys are all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.